Paid to Drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA. Get on board.
At Quickfill, what matters most is that our customers, our communities, and our heroes are taken care of. We start by providing American-made gasoline, which means you can buy local, keeping America and your communities strong. We also support vital charities every year and hold Operation Give Thanks each November to help provide a better future for our veterans and their families. We're proud to support the communities we live and work in, and we're doing our best every day to make our towns a better place. Quickfill, driving America.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natale.
It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio on a Monday. Welcome in on this 8th of June. Also live on Facebook and on YouTube. We have the crucial conversations that Erie needs, and let's talk a little bit of politics and government with Rock Copeland. He is a member of Erie County Council, District Number 3. Rock, welcome back. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Always glad to be here.
All righty. So, I ran into you last week, and I still think we have some issues that people need clarity on, and you're the guy that's always promoting clarity and transparency and things. First off, why is it important that citizens get this stuff? Even some of the minutia that council works with.
I mean, we get better governance when people have informed perspectives, informed views, and when they vote that they, effectuate real change in our government, and but also there's a symbiotic relationship too. That, like for council, I really love when people come and speak, and even if they might be particularly mad at me in a moment, like hearing those perspectives and the things that they're saying to help inform our views, is there's a symbiotism to that we can be better informed electeds as well.
Has the tenor of general council meetings kind of changed, would you say, since you started? I don't remember, like, for example, a ton of citizens to be heard, maybe even before COVID, certainly, and maybe even in the last 3 years.
I mean, my time on county council has involved the Blasco Gannon Library issue.
There you go.
The death of Marcella Woodard.
Yes.
I mean, there certainly have been flashpoints of engagement. And I think that some of that engagement at county council meetings says something about people's larger view of governance, that they're, some of these are like federal government opinions that bleed down to the local and like really have some questions about how government is run.
It's
right?
really flipped. Remember how it used to, the comment was all politics are local. That's not the case anymore. It's really kind of flipped.
I think they are. I'm describing a growing opinion of distrust and disagreement, and I think it's causing people to pay more attention to the politics is local because we know one another. Many people that are coming to county council meetings, I'll go to lunch with them or out to coffee. Like, local officials are accessible and in front, and so. It's a little bit harder for me to have a meeting with Senator Fetterman, right? So that allows for that activism and that engagement a little more readily because it's directly in front of you.
All righty. I want to get right to one of the biggest issues that's out there. And I thought we had a pretty comprehensive conversation with folks as part of the Reentry Alliance. But I witnessed firsthand last Tuesday that this is not a settled situation, at least in some of the citizens' views. So give us a little bit of background again on on where reentry was and where reentry is.
Yeah, so reentry broadly was a creation of Conversations Through Unified Erie, where they were developing this system. They brought in a lot of stakeholders to talk at an advisory council, and frankly, I wasn't here for a lot of those proceedings, so I won't get too deep into it, but originally this program was chosen to have the GCAC run this program, and they did so for quite a few years. I think roughly 2016 to 22, somewhere around there.
And when you say running a program, it's basically providing some governance to it, but really the case managers or the caregivers, if you will, they're all like trained clinicians, aren't they, pretty much?
Yeah, so GCAC and then the Y were the vessel to receive funding to deal with administrative functions like the payroll and everything else. But both of these entities, as they existed, followed roughly the same model for how reentry services would function, were informed by that process. There was some partnership with the Mercyhurst Civic Institute to compile the data to, you want to measure how your performance has been. And so largely a collaborative effort of quite a few elected officials and community stakeholders is the way that I understand it to be. Now, this year, we were informed that those same stakeholders had intended to move the program once again, the same as they had from GCAC to the Y.
Okay, let me just be clear on who the stakeholders are. I mean, are we talking about the DA's office? Are we talking about public defenders? What are we seeing?
So in the conversation with us in the room, Bob Cataldi, which was the director, the court administrator, right? He's kind of the hand of the court in a way. DA and the deputy DA.
So DA hers. Yeah.
Yes. And her deputy, Amy Eisert from the Mercyhurst Civic Institute, and then Daria Devlin, the mayor, for her part in a partnership to help fund some of these.
Yeah,
positions.
the city is a funding partner with this, and that's kind of new, isn't it? Have they provided some cash before?
I'm under the impression that there may have been some CBD funds usage in the past, but I'm generally not aware of what the city's contribution. What I knew was new for us was that it would be a county contribution, direct general fund dollars, what people associate with their property taxes. That was the new investment. There had always been funding through the DA, like PCCD funds and et cetera, and kind of a hodgepodge, right? So PCCD grants might be available for a year or 3 years. They have a life cycle, and then you have to go and get that next PCCD grant and the next grant and the next grant. So
and just from an outsider's point of view, it always looked like reentry was always kind of having to pedal for cash. It was started with Erie County, the Erie Community Foundation, and some crime money, if you will. At least that was my perception. And then they were like kind of looking for cash here and there to keep the doors open. And I'm getting the sense now that there's more of a steady stream because it's becoming a line item on your budget for the county on the city's block grant budget.
So I'll say generally, funding for law enforcement, crime prevention efforts, and et cetera, have broad bipartisan support at the state.
Sure.
And so there's not necessarily specific concerns that no grant funding would be available, but it is always a task, and many nonprofit leaders know this, that when one grant cycle is coming up, that you're looking to apply for the next one, and that does take a lot of effort and gives you a little bit of an existential crisis every now and then to make sure that you get that next grant. And I would say grant funding had always been available.
Okay.
And they could, but having the backing of local government to know that if that grant funding were to run out or not to be renewed, which is becoming a rising concern, particularly at the Fed, where with DOGE you see a lot of those kind of funds kind of going away, although most of our money was from the state. But it gives you that backing to know that if there is a lapse in some of that grant funding, that you have the support and help of local government to backstop it. I think it would be the financial aspect is more of a happy benefit rather than maybe the direct concerns. I will say the reentry program in its current incarnation, as I understand it, the intention was always that they wanted this to be a county government function. And there was some in the community that said, prove the model, prove that this functions and works. And I think that is the work that has been done both under GCAC and at the Y, that now you have pretty much everyone in agreement. I think this is not said often enough. Everyone coming to advocate, all the council members and all the elected officials have one major overlap. We all truly believe in the reentry work. And a lot of this is a conversation about how it's implemented, where it lives, who's in charge, et cetera. And that, I think that's the primary point of contention, where everybody now knows, yes, reentry work is important. And from my perspective, I want county government to be a major contributor to this work, that we should commit to it. So
what I have not heard in all three conversations about this is why these major players, the court itself, the DA's office, Mercyhurst Civic Institute, and the city of Erie, represented by the mayor, are saying this reentry program needs to move from the Y to somewhere else. Can you help explain that for us?
I think that's being framed as a choice. There are some, particularly those that were affiliated with the program at the Y, that feel that the decision to have a county department was an intentional chopping block, right? I don't necessarily share that perspective. I will say there are a lot of motivations from various people. There's some that believe very strongly that the program was being run very well at the Y, and a lot that don't. Okay. There are other people that strongly hold positions like more conspiratorial views as to the players that are involved, and others that don't. And when you're hearing testimony from people, it's very hard to distill what is objective truth, right? And from many of the people's perspectives at the Y, if you're a human services worker, generally you're there because you believe in the mission, not because it's great pay, right? And it's the same thing at the county, where these are workers that feel very heartfelt that they're making a difference in the world, that they're making things better. And I can understand a concern when you feel that you are making these kinds of impacts, that its new destination is not going to provide the same results. That makes sense. I view it as more of an opportunity for county government, because the model is largely the same. This is still the same idea. People say that Erie County reentry died somehow, but really it's in its second move. And I think the original location that it should have been as a function of county government to do that. Now, I will say there's also some concern from some of these stakeholders about closeness to parole. Mm-hmm. And, I understand that perspective, and I think that's the one that holds the most weight with me. Myself and many others attended a parole reform forum shortly after Marcella Woodard's death. And the one thing that I heard from people that were going through the parole system as a parolee was how intrusive that process was, that people come into your home for random inspections, or really you live by their rules. And from some of their perspectives, they feel that their parole officer is always trying to get them to go back to jail. And fair or not, my major takeaway from that conversation is that parole ought to have a human services arm. I'd much rather have someone with a polo and a clipboard than a uniformed officer, right? It's a different dynamic. And I can understand how, especially if you've been incarcerated, you have certain feelings about what that system looks like. It makes a lot of sense. And my initial perspective was this might be what it looks like if we incorporate human services into parole functions. Since listening to a lot of the people in that space, I think that was wrong. Okay. I still think that I would like to have the motivations of parole officers still trying to get assistance, but it's context, right? If you see somebody in a context of when you need to take a drug test, it is fundamentally different than the guy that's trying to help get you addiction treatment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the real conversation that's been going on behind the scenes, that there's a lot of stakeholders in this, right? You got 9 judges, 7 council members, a county executive, a DA. There's a ton of people involved in this conversation, and finding some consensus on this is challenging. But my goal is to, at minimum, widen the gap so that there's no question as to which part you're interacting
with. Because my understanding was that that there is a separation, that basically the parole and probation, again, is just the administrator, but that the program manager and the caseworkers are all separate from parole officers.
Yes, and they've been very intentional about an MOU in which they, very explicitly, you are not to talk to the parole officers, and the parole officers aren't to talk to you, and if that were to happen, trouble, right?
Okay. Rock Copeland, our guest here on the Joel Natale Show. We're talking about county business and the things that have been making headlines here. I want to put a bow on reentry here, Rock, before the bottom of the hour. We've got about 5 minutes. And so let me get to brass tacks here. We are still serving those incarcerated, as they get ready to be released by the state system or the county system. They're able to receive services. They're able to get jobs. If they want to go work for Don John, I'm assuming that is still an avenue for work.
Yeah,
and there's many other employers that will employ formerly incarcerated individuals.
Yeah, and I would hesitate to speak directly to the current work, and I think that ECRSSA as it exists, it still exists, and it's under the auspices of the county. But like any program, it's iterative. I try to tell people that the votes that we have on council are not the wins and losses. The wins and losses are after skilled workers at the county take these programs and develop them, and the win is the outcomes.
Yeah.
And so we're still yet to see those wins or losses. My perspective is to work collaboratively with the other elected officials to put pressure using my particular influence to make sure that these programs are being developed in a good way, and to be iterative in the way that they think, and that next year we're better than we were today. And I think that that's largely my goal. Finding some separation from parole, we're in conversations about what that looks like from an org chart perspective, from a budgetary perspective, and a policy perspective. These are all different things. And this is a continuing conversation as to what the future of this looks like. That a year from now, it might be fairly different. But Erie County, I think the one through line is that we're all committed to this work, that we think it's very important for the community.
There was some kind of a dust-up over first reading, second reading, and, what was it, a personnel meeting or something like that? Can you just, I've got like 2 minutes. Can you speak to that?
There's a couple points of critique. When I arrived on council and was the finance chair and saw these finance and personnel meetings that weren't previously recorded on YouTube, I went back to look because I was trying to figure out, my very first meeting I ever ran was as chair of finance. And I'm like, how's this going to work? And there's no videos of it. So we started recording those videos and posting them to YouTube because I understood for public transparency, like, it's a huge deal to have these recordings out there. And we have been. In this one instance, the employee didn't click the Zoom, the record meeting on the Zoom.
Gotcha.
And after the meeting occurred, she was like, guys, I'm really sorry. I didn't record the meeting in it. and it sucks. I remember.
Was it that meeting that you chose to go to second reading?
No,
okay.
so
that was on a general council.
Our
meeting,
finance and personnel meetings are largely a working meeting, still a public meeting.
Yeah.
Public's invited to attend, especially on Zoom because the seating's a little bit small. But we have public comment. Those are official government meetings, largely it was the conversation that we have with county employees. What are you proposing? What are you trying to do? It's kind of their opportunity to testify to council and allow us to ask questions and allow us to learn more about it. And so for people that felt that meeting was not recorded on purpose, it depends on your faith in the individuals there, right? But the critique that has some merit is ordinances are supposed to go for 2 reads. They're going to be on 2 different agendas, 2 different meetings to allow the public to come and speak on the topic. When there is some sense of urgency, we can use a parliamentary procedure where we vote to move it to a second read in that first meeting, right? The general meeting. And at the time, I'll say it went a little under the radar. This was the same first meeting that we were discussing the ICE ordinance, and everybody was primarily there to speak on that issue. And I think that it largely went by without people understanding what was being done. I will say it's taught me that it's probably better to be more intentional. We are moving it to a second, and these are our reasons.
Yeah.
Looking for amazing finds and incredible deals? Visit Erie City Mission Thrift today. From stylish clothes and shoes to quality furniture and home goods, you'll discover something new each time while changing lives right here in Erie. It's shopping that feels good and does good. Come see us in Erie and Girard. Erie City Mission Thrift. Thrift with a purpose.
All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, 5th next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA039007.
From baggage claim to pajamas in 10 minutes. Erie International Airport. Fly with ERI.com.
Fly Erie International Airport to Charlotte on American Airlines, your nonstop gateway to the world. Also, we have Breeze Airways flying nonstop to Orlando and Tampa, Florida. A great low-cost carrier providing excellent service to the regional community. Fly Erie International for your travel needs.
Fly with ERI.com.
Appreciate you tuning in on a Monday. It's 4:34, and it's the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio down here at 5th and State, and making his way over from the courthouse. You live at the courthouse, don't you? I mean, pretty much. I see you there every time I go.
I'm there a lot, yeah.
Rock Copeland is with us here. He represents District 3 in Erie County Council, and I tell you what, you forget how big Erie County is. You know, you got almost 280,000 people, 270, 280. You have, these population-based districts. So your district is one of the smallest geographically, yet it's got the same number of people as Charlie Bale's district, which is this massive southern tier of the county, right? I mean,
yeah, I represent the western side of the city and a sliver of Mill Creek, so roughly 75% of my district is the 6th Ward.
How many constituents generally are in each district? Is it 100? No, not one. It would be like 35,000 or something like that.
I tend to look for registered voters,
which
is not the same thing as
That's
census.
True.
I'm not entirely sure because it is based off census. I want to say around 40, 45.
It's that many,
somewhere around there. I mean,
wow.
270 divided by 7.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the math on that. I tend to, when I'm researching things, I tend to look at how many registered voters.
When you think about it, if you were the mayor of a 45,000 person city, that'd be a pretty big city.
Yeah, but there are issues where we look at things from a district perspective, but for the most part, I truly believe that all 7 council members are trying to look at the whole. We should represent our district, and I certainly am advancing city type perspectives, right, of my voters, but we don't get in a lot of conversations about my district this, my district that. Like it's really more of holistic view of the county and county operations more than anything. I mean, as big as the county is, the county government is massive. A lot of times we're a mile wide and an inch deep, with 1,200 employees. It's a lot to put your arms around.
Yeah. I want to ask you about something that all council members are concerned with, and that is the killing of Marcella Woodard and the aftermath of that, and the concept of, if there was better video, we would have more answers, wouldn't we?
Sure. And from my perspective, knowing that a state parole officer was involved in that shooting, right? But our county services from county parole and probation were also impacted because they had some concerns about going into the community and interacting. And a lot of people don't make the distinction between the different levels of government, right? It's just government broadly.
Sure.
And so there was a lot of talks about what kind of reforms could we implement to avoid anytime somebody loses their life, it's an absolute tragedy. And of course we want to avoid that, but we also want to give better public accountability. We also want to restore trust in the community to know that these officers, that there's some accountability. And really that was a conversation involved with the courts pretty quickly to say, have we ever considered having our county probation and parole officers wear body cameras? Is this something we want to do? And largely the answer was yes, but there's never been the political will to set the money aside and to get it done. And I had asked them for our going into our 2026 budget to incorporate an ask and to be able to give us a plan to say, this is how we can implement it, this is what it's going to cost. And I was really excited about approving money in our budget to allow parole and probation, but also our sheriff's officers to wear body cameras. And again, like I said, the win is not the vote. The win is the outcome, and one outcome is our sheriff's officers will be wearing body cameras soon. We did find out through PCCD that the law that allowed probation officers at the state to wear body cameras that was passed in 2023 covered a different section than the section in which our probation officers were defined, and we really hit a roadblock on that goal. Thankfully, Representative Bizzarro, who I talked to about it a couple times, I ran into him dropping petition signatures in Harrisburg. And it's just on the street walking, like, hey, Ryan, good to see you. And he says, go come over to the office when you're done. And I came over and sat with their policy guy and wrote out some language and kicked it around. And within a couple of weeks, Representative Bizzarro had advanced House Bill 2299, which would provide an exclusion from the Wiretap Act for parole to be able to have body cameras. And just today, that got through the House Judiciary Committee unanimously.
Yeah, no pushback at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the public perception of body cameras have really shifted. I think that police and DAs and the general public see this as a two-way accountability, that when public officials are interacting with the public, that there's a dual accountability, and there's very little pushback. Senate Bill 520 that was passed last year, put forward by Senator Baker, gave body cameras to DCNR and water conservation, and sheriffs, and a whole bunch of other, and it passed both houses first year of introduction unanimously. There's a broad bipartisan agreement that this is a good tool.
You never know when a very large elk might be running at you. Sorry.
Yeah, that is one of the stranger things.
DCNR, right. Well, no, I mean seriously, our rangers, they do law enforcement, especially at the beach, right, at Presque Isle. But let me keep moving here because I wanted to catch a lot. Cell phones at the courthouse. Asked the county executive Vogel about it. You guys actually voted down or tabled a resolution about it because, well, the wording was weird that you were going to ask the county executive or, I mean, you have separation of powers in county government. And then don't forget, you got a whole court system that deals with the idea of cell phones totally differently than maybe what you would deal with in chambers.
All right, separation of powers first. The Home Rule Charter has a non-interference clause that basically says, council members, you are not to go to this elected official, say, hire this person, fire that person, do this, do that. We do not have the individual authority to go and demand things. But my argument is that we do have the collective authority to pass ordinances and resolutions, right? An ordinance is a law, and the county executive is tasked with carrying out those ordinances. So there was some opinion that we don't want to demand anything, and I said, no, we do that all the time. It's called an ordinance. It's called a resolution. Now, what that was in a larger perspective is a recognition that council on their own should be wary of establishing a policy that affects all the other elected officials. And in my view, the county executive is kind of the convener of a lot of different interests, 23 elected officials, who's the glue? And it turns out the person that provides shared HR, shared IT, shared humans, HR, is probably that person that can...
The administration.
Yeah, be the glue. And so the resolution effectively asked and directed the county executive to convene those interests to write policy that provided for accommodation. In my view, the Sunshine Law says that all of these governments shall allow recording of public meetings. There's not a lot of wiggle room there. It does say that you can, put in reasonable rules and procedures. One of the challenges is security in the courthouse, where it is a fact that people were recording testimony to intimidate witnesses in court. Okay, and so the courts say we cannot have cell phones, and the sheriff, being the main security for us, has to implement a policy to keep cell phones out of the court. Now, do we need a sheriff's officer at every courtroom on 2 different floors? Wow. We don't have the staff for that. And we already have a check-in where you go through a metal detector, and it is right that there should be a single point where the phones are locked. Mm-hmm. Then the question is, okay, so they have to have their cell phones locked and then come back to council chambers and somebody unlocks them, and then after they leave, we should lock them again. Like, that sounds right. So it's a tangled web of okay, what's good policy and what can you effectuate in reality? I mean, one of the concerns is that people might leave their phone underneath their chair, and then the next day when they come in to see the MDJ, they have their phone there and unlocked, right? So there's genuine concerns, and it is more than just 7 council members. There's a lot of people in this conversation.
Well, I'm thinking you don't want phones in the election office. I don't think. I think that's in my opinion, that would be a violation of an election integrity.
Yeah, I mean, there is a need for security. The other side of that is when I was in 2018 going through a divorce, thankfully it was very amicable, and I filed all my own paperwork, but I still needed to go and deal with child custody and custody or child support payments and everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm in the office. Oh, I need my son's social security number. Don't have that memorized, but it's on my phone. Can I unlock it? No. So I'll go outside, get the number, go back in. Right. All right, now you need your ex-wife's phone number. Well, I don't have that either.
On my phone.
So there are certainly spaces where, as a matter of security, you don't want them, but there's other places where it's an encumbrance on service to be able to.
Sure.
And departments have discretion to unlock phones largely, but
does everybody have one of those unlocking deals?
I wouldn't say everybody for certain.
Yeah.
Most, but there is also the concern that if you're unlocking phones, you also would need to lock it again, and sometimes that conflict of security versus transparency.
Right.
And this has been an open question since 2016. I remember reading a news article from 2023. A young lady that sadly just lost her life recently had been in the media talking about this same topic, and so like this has come up again and again, and I think it's necessary that we have a significant review. And I think the county executive is leading that review. She's having those conversations, but from a council perspective, demonstrating to the electorate, we hear you, we believe you, we agree with you. The best way that we can demonstrate that is often by putting the vote on the record.
Let me, I've got like 5, 6, 7 minutes with Rock Copeland here. And I want to get to a little bit of economic development. We don't talk too much about it, but why not? Data centers. This is something that you are highly acquainted with. I'm kind of surprised how little we seem to have going on with data centers here in Northwest. Not only Erie County, really all of Northwest PA. The one map that I saw, and it's been several months now, but there was nothing going on this north of I-80. What would be policy, or what should be considerations, I should say, when it comes to data centers in Erie County, Rock?
This is a contentious topic that people on both sides of the aisle feel very strongly about in a wide variety of ways. From a council perspective, Pennsylvania state law does not allow us to exclude specific uses. We cannot say no data centers allowed in Erie County by law. There are some efforts.
Are people starting to propose that? Like kind of
there have been a couple of attempts by municipalities to try to do so or establish rules that are so stringent that it would make it very hard to make that use case. I'm not saying I'm against that idea, but I think that they would fail in the courts, right? And there's been some bills advanced in the House that would allow for a moratorium. I mean, that is the recognition that we don't have the ability ourselves, it's a preemption from the state. We don't have the ability to say no data centers. Well, and right now specifically, there is not zoning rules to say to restrict what a data center would look like, right? So just like the same way with the solar farms. A couple years ago, some of the solar farms are coming in. Municipalities weren't prepared with ordinances to say, if you were going to have that, here are the rules. And so what that meant is when solar farms moved into their communities, they didn't have rules, and they got to do whatever they wanted. And there's input from the community that needs to be heard to say, here's your setbacks, here's your building heights, here's your noise limits, here's your water usage rules, here's your power generation rules, so that they can't just come into these communities and build whatever. And right now, that's what the Planning Commission is working on. They're looking at a draft. It's based off a model ordinance that kind of sets forth some of those rules. And it's not to encourage or discourage data centers. It's just to say, if somebody wanted to build one, here are the rules that you would have to comply with. And I think that's really important, because right now we don't have protections.
Should this be something that should be on the front burner at the General Assembly, though? I mean, it seems like we need a master idea here from Harrisburg.
Yeah, we certainly do, but we have to recognize that there's such division of opinion even within each of the parties.
Yeah.
That some members of each of the parties are trying to establish moratoriums, and some members of the parties are trying to increase development, and some members of the party are just trying to come up with some sane rules. And yeah, I hope to see leadership from the state for broader rules, but political realities, I'm not sure. And I think that a local leadership perspective is, if I'm waiting on the state to try to fix an issue, I'm losing.
Okay.
And so locally, we just have to do what we can with the tools that are given to us by the state. We derive all of our powers from the state. What tools do we have now? And what do we do to ensure that our community develops in a way that we're comfortable with?
Let me ask you about politics. This might be a sour way to end the conversation, but you've got a 5-2 Democrat-Republican mix on city count or county council. I mean, most votes are 7-0. I mean, I'm just witnessing that, but some aren't. Actually, we witnessed a couple of mixed votes. You have a Democrat in the 5th floor at the county executive. That's different than 12 months ago.
Sure is.
Tell us about kind of the esprit de corps of the courthouse, and is it better? Is it worse? Are you able to get things done?
Largely, I could not be happier with the change in tone throughout the entire courthouse under the leadership of the county executive, where before I really felt like we were behind the Berlin Wall trying to look over what's going on over there. I'm almost inundated with information. I'm having great conversations all the time with not just Christina, but Chris Groner, the Director of Administration, and really any of the directors of these departments that before we were entirely excluded access.
So are you able to balance that with, keeping chain of command alive?
Yeah, because it's collaborative conversations.
Okay.
We'll have a conversation. All of us have liaisons with departments so that, if you're trying to encompass the whole of the county government, then you're going to have a really hard time. So, I'm the liaison to the planning office.
Okay.
And she'll bring me in, and here's what we're thinking about. Here's what we're working on. Here's what we're thinking. What do you think? And then it's my job to go back to my colleagues and say, hey, this is what they got going on, and this is what we're doing. From a council member's perspective, it makes me busier.
Okay, right.
But I won't complain because I mean the alternative is so much worse and so much more dysfunctional, and that's great. And so largely I'm feeling really good about it. On the council perspective, I'm not sure where we are as a group right now. There's some division and differences of opinion.
The election board controversy was pretty. It went pretty deep, didn't it?
Yeah. That's been a challenge, and I think when there's been such conflict in the past that most of your time gets taken up by that conflict, and then when that resolves, you have a moment to self-reflect and think about how things are going on in your own operation. And people are talking about these topics a little bit more, and from time to time it can give some conflict. But like all things, I think we grow through it, one vote at a time. All of us actually have a great collegiality. Like Charlie Bale and I, we'll disagree on what color the sky is, but we treat each other with respect. I was just on the phone with him for an hour the other night, just talking back and forth on a lot of topics, and as contentious as it is sometimes, you find a way to work through it and just move on to the next vote.
You've been listening to The Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.